It's indeed a privilege to be here today and to be called all the way from Pune to speak to the select audience that has been invited here. And the purpose of the talk is, of course, as the title says, Zari Patka in Delhi. Now, let us see what is a Zari Patka to start with. A Zari Patka is one of the flags that the Marathas had, which was mostly used for ceremonial purposes. It had a saffron swallow-tailed flag which had a zari border at its edges, and there was another flag which was also the plain Bhagwa flag. So sometimes both the flags were flown. In addition to these, each of the Maratha chiefs had their own flag. Like the Scindias had the sun in the center with two snakes on the side on a saffron background, and so on and so forth. Zari Fatka in Delhi basically signifies that in the 18th century the Marathas came to Delhi again and again and again, and they occupied it, they protected it, they defended it, they fought for it, they shed their blood for it. So it's a long story of the 18th century, which is often represented as an anarchy of sorts, which took place around Delhi. Part of it may be true, but part of it is not. And while 18th century is generally regarded as an anarchy all over India, that is not really the case. Because if you go south of the Chambal, right up to the Kaveri, or east of the Ganga into the Awadh and Bengal and Bihar regions, there was no chaos. The chaos was limited to a few hundred miles around Delhi, which was because of frequent changes in the person who was ruling the city. So to start with the beginning, let us see what is so important about the 18th century. So among historians in general, there is a 18th century debate going on right now. What does it signify? What does it stand for? Whether it was anarchy, whether it was just the fall of the Mughal Empire followed by the rise of the British Empire, and nothing happened in between. Today, my purpose is to show to you that there was an empire which was in existence in India in large parts of India in the 18th century, and Delhi was the center of the ancient capital of India, which was the focus of all their efforts. And for large parts of the 18th century, Delhi was under Maratha occupation or under Maratha control. At the same time, I have to start with a disclaimer that history is a very sensitive subject today. You can see in the debates and discussions in the media, the social media, on TV, you'll find there are two very diametrically opposite viewpoints about everybody who ever ruled in this country. Well, some will be on the side of the Mughals or the slave dynasty, some will be in favor of the Marathas. You will find very heated arguments about this. So it is necessary to treat history with a certain gentleness, and it deserves the respect. It should be treated with respect as far as the facts are concerned. And it is one of the most passionate of subjects, but even then it has to be treated in a very dispassionate manner if you really want to understand what the facts say and understand what happened in the past. Let us not judge the 18th century and the 17th century by the mores and the kind of dealings we have in the 21st century. At the same time, let us not replicate the lessons of the 18th century and bring them forward in the 21st century and try to impose them on the society of today. We are totally different. It's a totally different country today, and what happened in the 18th century cannot be a kind of a reason for the same kind of circumstances to prevail in the 21st century. They're totally different. But the 18th century did play a role in defining where India stood and in defining the India of today. The British took over, they started their British Raj by taking over from the Marathas, not from the English. And that should be borne in mind when you say that the Mughal Empire ended and the British Empire started in 1757, which it did not. So, it is telling history as factually as present, and we should have the maturity to take history of the 18th or the 17th century with all its pockmarks, all its moles, without as a nation, and not try to mold history in a manner which suits the nation building, which was very important in the early part of the post-independence decades. So I think by now the nation should be confident enough and mature enough to face the facts that happened in the past and not expect that history is going to deepen the fault lines that prevail in Indian society even today. So a historian, before he starts talking, needs to understand that when he is talking about history, objectivity is difficult, but sensitivity or caution is necessary, and at all times a balance is essential. So with keeping these three caveats in mind, I'll try to discuss this 18th century and how it unfolded in this country, and with specific reference to Delhi in today's talk. Recently we had a very funny instance of a person claiming to be a descendant of Bahadur Shah Zafar, for which he had a certificate from Berlin saying that he has genetic proof that and he had also quoted some genes which were actually belonged to Central Asia. Actually, the Mughals came here in the early 16th century, and in the fourth or the fifth generation, they were practically naturalized Indians. They married, intermarried here, they stayed here, they broke off all connections with their homeland, and even the Marathas considered them as part of this country. And the Marathas repeatedly came to the north and they fought several battles in order to defend the Mughal Empire. When Sadashivara Bhau comes with a large army to Panipat, he writes letters to the potentates in north and tells them that we are here to defend the Chughtai dynasty, and at no cost must the roots of an invader like Abdali be allowed to take root in this country. So at that time itself, there was a clear-cut idea that there is something that is Indian and there is something that is not Indian, and that idea was expressed in those letters around 1760, and we still have those. So we know that the enunciation of the Indian nation state was probably around that time. Of course, you can define India by saying India is in two parts. One is a political state with rigid boundaries, and one is a cultural state of India which prevailed for thousands of years. That is why as long back as in the 8th century, you will find Adi Shankara establishing 4 mutts in the 4 corners of India. You can find one in Kedarnath, one in Dwarka, one in Puri, and one in Sringeri in the south. So on what basis did he define that these were the 4 areas where he had to establish his 4 mutts? That was a cultural extent of India. In fact, it was much further in the centuries before that. So we have to define what is India, today we are leading a life where you have to accept the reality of a nation state. However universal your faith may be or your belief may be, today we are living within the confines of a nation state, and what is good for the nation state is good for you and good for all residents of this country. So any supranational loyalties have no place in a nation state like India, and that has to be very clearly understood by people who claim to be Indian citizens. Then where does the problem of Swarajya arise? Why was Swarajya? It was in the British rule. Lokmanya Tilak said that I am fighting for Swarajya, it's my birthright and I shall have it. And nearly 200 years before that, Chhatrapati Shivaji used the same words, I am fighting for my Swarajya. So there was a period during the Mughal rule and even the Deccan Sultanates where there was a feeling that Swarajya was lost, my own rule is lost and somebody else is ruling over me. There's an oft-repeated quote by an Irish patriot when he was actually fighting with the English, where he says that he says that men have their honor, will not lose their honor, women their chastity, and the nation will not lose their freedom. If these 3 things are looked after, you are living in your own Swarajya. But if you're going to lose your honor, you're going to lose your chastity, and you're going to lose your freedom, you're not living in a free state. So when these 3 things happen, that is when there's a demand of Swarajya which comes up. And that happened in the British rule, and that happened when in the beginning of Maratha Rajya in the middle 17th century when Shivaji raised the banner of Swarajya. A similar thing happened from Jahangir's time right up to Aurangzeb's time when the Sikhs were being troubled by the Mughal emperors. They started fighting for their own freedom. So these movements began because of certain kinds of oppressive policies which the government of that time or the kings of that time were following. And even later, if you find the Mughal rule, they still did claim that their lineage was either Turani or Irani and they followed the Persian culture. Today we understand that these are not Indian cultures, and even at that time they were not Indian cultures, and therefore there was a certain animosity built up between the rest of the people and the people or rulers, and the people who did not have the privileges or did not have the ancestry or the lineage from these particular were treated differently from what the ruling class was treated at that time. You cannot compare the raw ethos of the 17th and 18th century with the sophisticated debates we have today, and we should not do that. Having said this, and with this disclaimer, I will come to the 18th century and try to talk about India. Now, very often when you read Indian history, you find it has got a Delhi-centric view. what happens in Delhi or what happened in the Delhi, who was ruling Delhi, that's how the narrative of Indian history is given in our textbooks. It starts with Qutbuddin Aibak came here, then the slave dynasty was there, the whole list of names, then the Mughals came, their whole list of names, but nobody talks about the kingdoms down south, the Cholas, their colonization of Southeast Asia. They are not part of the mainstream Indian history which there. So what I'm trying to say is that Indian history is multifocal. You cannot stand at one vantage point in India and say this is Indian history. Indian history has to be told from different vantage points, and a cohesive history has to be built up. A cohesive narrative has to be built up today, almost 70 years after independence. So now let's come to the topic of the day. The beginning, as I said, was always the concept among the Marathas always was that Delhi is the ancient capital of India, and one who possesses Delhi actually is in control of the country. So there are mentions during Shivaji's time that we want to finally go and capture Delhi. There are letters from Rajaram's time, his son's time, when he was in the deep south in Jinji, surrounded by Mughal forces, but he kept saying that we have kept aside a fund for so many thousand hones, and this much money is kept aside for the capture of Delhi. So in 1690s, when they were the blackest days of the Maratha kingdom, even at that time they dreamt that one day they will be able to go and capture Delhi. So this dream was always there. This I'm speaking with specific reference to Delhi because there's a feeling that why did the Marathas ignore Bengal? The English probably got through from there, or they got through from Madras, from where they started their rule. Delhi was always the center, and Delhi was always the focus throughout the period that the Marathas tried to have their movement here. The first visit of a Maratha king was when Shivaji was asked to come to Agra to meet Aurangzeb. This was in the year 1666, and this was because the large army led by Mirza Raja Jai Singh, who was the king of Jaipur, took a large army to the Maharashtra region, and during that almost 1 year, many of his forts were taken by Mirza Raja, and eventually in the siege of Purandar, Shivaji realized there was no way out but to come to terms with this person who is so determined to bring him down. And appealing to his Hindu identity, he appealed to him, allowed him to keep a few forts for himself, but he was told that you must go and meet the emperor in Agra. And the purpose behind the meeting was to recruit Shivaji and use him for the spread of the Mughal Empire. That was the reason that he was called to Agra. Of course, he did go to Agra later on. He met him in the Agra fort in the Diwan-e-Khas because he had retired for the day there. It was a birthday celebration of Aurangzeb that day. His father had just died, so from Delhi he had just moved to Agra. And at that time, there was no real interaction between the two of them. But Shivaji was offended by the way he was treated in the court of the emperor, and he walked away from the emperor, turning his back towards him, and went and sat at the back of the court near one pillar, where he sent some nobles to check why has he got upset. And the reason told to the emperor was that, oh, it's just that he's a Deccani person, he's not accustomed to the court manners, and so on and so forth, and some excuses were made. But not a word was exchanged between Aurangzeb and Shivaji at that point in time. Next, Mirza Raja Jai Singh had given a promise to Shivaji that no harm will come to you. But so Aurangzeb was in a slight of a quandary, how should I deal with this person? So he put him in house arrest. And from that house arrest, within a few months, Shivaji escaped and reached Maharashtra and began his struggle against the Mughals once again. And this escape was lamented by Aurangzeb till his very last day, because after Shivaji coronated himself as Chhatrapati in 1674 and died in 1680, by the time he had taken his kingdom right up to the Kaveri in the south, Aurangzeb came down to Maharashtra in 1681, and for the last 26 years of his life, he stayed in Maharashtra. He never came back to Delhi or Agra. And those 26 years, the state of Maharashtra and the Deccan in general, the Bijapur and the Golconda kingdoms were extinguished. The entire state of Maharashtra was captured by the Mughal forces. There were just a few enclaves left in the deep south, a few islands of the western coast of Maharashtra, a few forts somewhere in the deep hills of the Sahyadris near Kolhapur. Other than that, the entire Maratha kingdom was practically extinguished. But yet, from the ashes, there was no peace. The emperor could not go back. His generals got tired. They kept telling him, let's go back, the battle is over. and he kept telling them, no, it is not. So till he died finally in 1707, this battle continued. And that battle actually, from arising from the ashes of that 26-year war, when everything was ravaged in that entire region, arose the fresh spurt for Maratha independence. And when Shahu, the son of Sambhaji, or the grandson of Shivaji, who was in Mughal custody for many years after his father was killed, he was released by the Mughals. The idea of releasing him was that they will start a civil war between the existing rule by Tarabai, who was the Rajaram's wife, and Shahu. The first 6 or 7 years were very, very disturbed, and they needed recognition, they needed money, they needed the army. They kept, in fact, they kept asking for recognition from the Mughal emperor at that time, who was Bahadur Shah. And it was only after Bahadur Shah died in Lahore and the Mughals began fighting amongst themselves. The Wazir became the supreme after the death of Bahadur Shah. And from then onwards, practically speaking, the rule of the emperor became less important than who was the Wazir. And the Wazir was the man who was controlling the reins of the empire. In 1715 or so, another civil war began in the Mughal kingdom. Farrukhsiyar was the emperor, and the people who actually held the keys to the kingdom were the Sayyad brothers, Hussain Ali and Abdullah Khan. And Farrukhsiyar, though he owed his throne to these two brothers, he did not want them because he found them very overbearing. So he decided to send Hussain Ali to the Deccan and keep Abdullah Khan with him as the Wazir. And Hussain Ali was posted to the Deccan as the Viceroy. After he went there, he realized that the whole purpose of this move is for Farrukhsiyar to get rid of both of them, both the brothers. And thanks to a Maratha minister called Shankaraji Mallar, who was with him at that time, he found a way of contacting the Marathas. And soon we find an unlikely alliance was building up between Hussain Ali and the Maratha king Shahu. That time his Peshwa was Balaji Vishwanath, the first of the so-called 5 or 6 Peshwas who ruled after that for the next 100 years. And Balaji Vishwanath, he was probably in his late 50s at that stage, along with the Senapati, who was Khanderao Dabhade at that time. With these two people, 30,000 Maratha troops joined Hussain Ali, and they were promised that every day that they spend north of the Narmada river, they will be paid a certain amount. Now there was a reason required for why was there such a big large Maratha army coming to the north. After all, it was just Hussain Ali who needed to come. So a story was kind of circulated and told to the emperor that a grandson of Aurangzeb is in the custody of the Marathas, because a son of Aurangzeb called Akbar had rebelled against his father and he was with the Marathas for a fairly long time. So it says that a son of his was still with them, and obviously if a son is with them, he was a challenge to the existing emperor who was Farrukhsiyar. So he wanted to get hold of this prince, and they said that the Marathas don't want to part with him. They will bring him with them to Delhi, and in exchange they will take back Shahu's mother and other members of the family who are still in Mughal prison for such a long time. So this prince, this mythical prince, was put in a special tent, he was put in a special elephant, nobody could go and meet him, and along with him, escorting him, these 30,000 Maratha troops, along with Hussain Ali, came, and Balaji Vishwanath Peshwa. They started moving towards Delhi. In about 2 or 3 months, they were at the gates of Delhi. And the situation here was the emperor was in a state of panic. The only supporter he had at that time was Savai Jai Singh of Jaipur. But the Wazir Abdullah Khan forced him to send him away. And at that point in time, the other Maratha nobles like Sadat Khan was there, or Nizamul Mulk was there in Delhi at that time. They would not come and take sides. So Hussain Ali Abdullah Khan, with Maratha troops surrounding the entire Red Fort, they had an altercation with the emperor. The emperor went and hid in the harem, in the women's quarters, and he was dragged out from there. He was blinded. You will find this blinding is a recurring theme in Mughal history. The emperors are usually blinded before they are deposed and then later on killed. That is because a blind person cannot be the emperor. It is a kind of in Mughal custom, a blind person cannot be the ruler. So before anything is done, the person is blinded first. So similarly, Farrukhsiyar was first blinded, then put in prison, and 2 days later he was strangled to death in his prison cell. This was done using the support of these 30,000 Maratha troops who were there in Delhi at that time. The first visit of a largely kind of people not used to the sophistication of a large city like Delhi with its fine buildings. You can imagine Shahjahanabad at that time, before the invasions began, and it was one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And when these Marathas came here, these rustics who were walking through the streets here, they were stunned by the beauty of the city, and that increased the attraction of Delhi. Along with Balaji Vishwanath was his son, the young Bajirao. He was just 19 years of age, and you can imagine the impact Delhi must have had on this young boy. At that time, the achievements, what they wanted was that they wanted three things from the Mughal emperor. First thing, they wanted a sanad of Swarajya, saying that you have got the original kingdom of Shivaji Maharaj will be given to you. Secondly, they wanted the right to collect south from the 6 subas of the Deccan, and which they insisted on till the very end. The 6 Mughal subas of the Deccan were to be governed by the Marathas, and 1/4 of the revenue was to be collected by them. That right they wanted. The third thing was a concept called a Sar Deshmukhi, which is 10% of the revenue which went to the king. So these three sanads was what they wanted, and these three sanads, after Farrukhsiyar was deposed, the next man was brought and put in his place by Hussain Ali and Abdullah Khan, was a young youth called Rafiud Darjat. And this boy was made to sign all the sanads, and these sanads were taken along with Shahu, who was the Maratha Chhatrapati at that time, his mother, his half-brother, and any other members of the family who were imprisoned from 1689 onwards. They were all taken back with them to Maharashtra. That is like the Magna Carta of the Maratha rule. And many people criticize the Marathas that by taking this sanad from the Mughal emperor, in a way, they stopped asserting their independence. However, it was a more nuanced and complex thing than just that, because it was like a reign by the Mughals, but the rule by the Marathas. And the same principle was followed by the British when they came over. They allowed the various rulers here, like the Scindias, the Holkars, the Mughals in Delhi, to continue ruling, but they actually carried out all the transactions of the kingdom. So it was something of some arrangement of that sort. And when they went to the south, things started settling down. Within a year, Balaji Vishwanath died and Bajirao became the Peshwa. Actually, Bajirao today, just an aside, has become such a common name in India thanks to the movie and the serial which was coming some days back. But you will not believe it that in the year 2000, when the Indian Postal Department was said that on his 300th birth anniversary, a postage stamp should be brought out for, and I think Colonel Jayanta Datta, one of the ex-Army Medical Corps officers, was in the lead because he was the Philatelic Society president. And he tried to convince the Postal Department that we should have a stamp of Bajirao. The Postal Department's response was, who is Bajirao? So from there we have come a long way in the last 15-16 years. Of course, the stamp eventually did come out 4 or 5 years later, and there is a 5 rupee first day cover which I have with me, which still has that one famous picture of him on a horse. So when Bajirao became Peshwa in 1720, a young dynamic man who was always outdoors. He did not have the patience for deliberations and discussions and politics, and he was always in camps from a very young age. From the age of 10, he had started fighting wars with his father. He had seen Delhi, and the first thing he told his king is that you, instead of making these small wars, you strike at the root. Strike at the root, which is Delhi, and all these other branches, whether it's the Nizam or this Bengal or Gujarat, they'll come down by themselves. Just give me this order and watch how I take the frontiers of your kingdom right up to the Himalayas. In fact, the word he used was, I'll take it to the Kinnar Khand. Kinnar Khand was supposed to be the area beyond the Himalayas, which was in our mythology considered the land of the Kinnars. So, enthused by this thing, the Chhatrapati kind of supported his enterprise, and from then on it was a look north policy, because in his entire career Bajirao went south only once, and that was in 1726 when he went all the way right to Srirangapatnam. So that was the only campaign he made south for 2 years, 1725-26. After that he started looking north. In the meanwhile, in 1724, the Nizamul Mulk, who belonged to the old school of Aurangzeb, he had come down and he started forming his own kingdom in Hyderabad. He won a famous battle at Sakar Kherda in 1724, and 1724 was the time when the Nizam's dynasty was established in Hyderabad. And 1724, in the first few years, the Nizam felt that he will be able to recruit the Marathas again to his cause, to his way of thinking, use their armies to develop, form his own autonomous kind of kingdom out of the influence of the Mughal emperor. And he found that the only obstacle in his path was Bajirao, who would not accept this kind of principle of being a junior partner of the Nizamul Mulk. And therefore, in time, they realized that the clash between the two of them was bound to happen. The first clash of this sort took place in 1728 in Palkhed, which is near Aurangabad. And Field Marshal Montgomery has described that famous as a masterpiece in strategic mobility, because for almost 6 months, Bajirao was taking the Nizam on a wild goose chase till finally he found him in a place where he was trapped and he was separated from his artillery, because artillery was one thing which the Marathas didn't have. It was a completely cavalry born force. For every 2 riders there was a 1 spare horse, and they traveled like the Cossacks 30, 40, 50 miles per day, and they could change directions at will. So no army which was carrying a heavy baggage and a lot of artillery with them could really keep pace with this kind of movements. So that's what he did, and in that situation, just north of the Godavari river, is where he trapped the Nizam, got him to accept all the terms that he were already conceded by the emperor in 1719, and right under his hand, I am giving you the right to collect Chauthai from the 6 subas of the Deccan. After that, the Nizam never, for the next few years at least, he did not go out of his way to antagonize Bajirao. The very next year, 2 more campaigns went. His younger brother, Chimaji Appa, he headed for Malwa, where the battle took place in Amjera near Dhar, and the Mughal governor was killed at that time. The Mughal Subedar, Girdhar Bahadur, and his brother Daya Bahadur, both were killed. Simultaneously, Bajirao by another route went to Bundelkhand, where he went to rescue Chhatrasal from the invasion by Muhammad Khan Bangash, who was the governor of Allahabad. And these 2 territories were within that year become part of the Maratha zone of influence. And there's a letter at that time written by one of Bajirao's aides called Pilaji Zadhavrao saying, our realm has touched the Yamuna, because the Yamuna near Bundelkhand and the Chambal near Malwa is where the Maratha territory had reached. By 1730, they had even taken Gujarat into their fold. They had a slight internal challenge when the Senapati challenged Bajirao. They had a battle at Dabhoi where the Senapati was killed accidentally, and Gujarat also came into the Peshwa's ambit. At this point in time, you find that suddenly the Maratha kingdom looks like, from 20 years, 1720, when it was just restricted to a few districts around Pune, to 1735, 1730-31, it suddenly reaches the Chambal and the Yamuna, and Maratha raiders were going right down up to Srirangapatnam. The Konkan coast, which was partly under the Portuguese and partly under the Siddhi of Zanjira. The Siddhi of Zanjira had been already defeated by that time. Large parts of its territory except the island of Janjira had been taken into the Maratha kingdom, and now he was trying to ensure that Malwa is not just de facto but de jure by a sanad from the Mughal emperor handed over to the Marathas. So what was happening was that Jai Singh was being appointed the Subedar and a deputy was being appointed as a Peshwa. So that kind of thing was going on for some time. And between 1733-1734, 2 years, large Mughal armies came down to try to push the Marathas back, right from Gwalior to Mewar. It's a big, about 300 kilometers wide belt where these battles were taking place, and they found they could not push them back at any stage, and they had to sign off large amounts of territory and give huge amounts of money to send the Marathas back from that stage. So Jai Singh, Kamruddin Khan, Khan Dauran, they all tried, but they could not succeed. So Savai Jai Singh came up with a proposal that, like once upon a time they had tried to recruit Chhatrapati Shivaji into the cause of the Mughal Empire, why not try to recruit Bajirao and get him to be to fight for the empire. So discussions began with Muhammad Shah, who was famously known as Rangila at that time, that we should try to accommodate Bajirao, make him a part of the empire and try to make him fight for us rather than fight against us. We can't control him. For that purpose, it was decided that Bajirao will go to Jaipur and Udaipur and meet these people. The envoys will go to Delhi, speak to Muhammad Shah, try to have a meeting with the emperor and see what best solution can be found to satisfy Bajirao's vaulting ambition, because he was not short of ambition. He wanted the revenue of Bengal also. He demanded, I want 50 lakh rupees from Bengal also. So just before that, just a example to show what was the influence Bajirao had on the Indian landscape at that time. His mother, Radhabai, who has been shown quite villainish in the movie, quite wrongly portrayed actually, she was on a pilgrimage and she wanted to go to Udaipur, Jaipur, then she wanted to go to Mathura, she wanted to go to Kashi, she wanted to go to Gaya and come back. And there was a big war in those years raging all over the north between the Mughals and the Marathas. But at every stage after crossing the Narmada, she was escorted by the Rajputs to Udaipur. She stayed there for a month. From there she went to Jaipur, where again she stayed for till the monsoons were over. From there an escort took her to the Jamuna, where at Mathura, Muhammad Khan Bangash, who had been defeated by Bajirao and Bundelkhand, he sent his escort and he said, Bajirao Sahib's mother is like my mother. From there he escorted her to Kashi. She finished her pilgrimage in Kashi, Gaya. You find Bajirao writing to her, please come back mother quickly, I want to start another campaign in the north. So finally she reached back in 1735 and that is when Bajirao could start off again to go up to Rajasthan. 1736 you find, 1735-36 you find Bajirao in Rajasthan. Now it was a very peculiar way in which he treated the two kings of Rana of Udaipur and the king of Jaipur. The Rana of Udaipur was Shishodia and the family of Chhatrapati Shivaji claimed its ancestry from the Shishodiyas of Udaipur. And Udaipur is the one house in Rajputs which never bowed before the Mughal emperor, or in those 18th century terms they never gave their daughters in marriage to the Mughal emperor. So Udaipur was always treated with a different kind of respect which the Marathas had. One, because the family was the Chhatrapati's family, and secondly they had never served the Mughals. So when he went to the Udaipur Rana, though Udaipur Rana was much weaker than the Jaipur king at that time, and the Udaipur Rana offered him a equal seat to sit on, he said, no, I will sit at your feet, because in your place you are the place of my sovereign, and I will not sit on equal basis with you. After finishing his visit to Udaipur, when he went to Jaipur, naturally the king of Jaipur expected a similar treatment, but Bajirao said no. When they had these discussions of how they will meet and how they will be received and so on, it was not that face to face he told Jai Singh this. He said that I am not going to accept this unequal behavior at Jaipur, because you people have served and your covetousness with the Mughal emperor has made you serve him, and you cannot get the same respect which the Rana of Udaipur can get, and we will sit, but today I allow you to be my equal. That's what he says, and I will let you sit along with me. And he sat with him, like the Hindi text says, घुटने को घुटना, जानू को जानू लगा के बैठ गए. And at one stage it even says that he was a rough soldier. At one stage there's also a reference that he blew the hookah smoke on Jai Singh's face. Of course, I think that is a bit of an exaggeration, because next 2 or 3 months they met several times, several gifts were exchanged and given to Bajirao. Meanwhile, the envoys were in touch with Muhammad Shah, and there's a lot of talk going on, what is going to be conceded to the Marathas, what is not going to happen. And Muhammad Shah, finding Bajirao is so close with all his Sardars, he conceded whatever Bajirao asked him. You want Malwa? Given. You want the revenue of Bengal? Given. You want a 50 lakh Jagir in the Deccan? Given. You want the fort of Mandu? Given. Whatever was demanded was being agreed to. So Bajirao said, okay, if everything is being agreed to, I'll just wait for 2 months for this to happen. He told his wakils in Delhi that please execute these agreements with Muhammad Shah. I'll go and sit in Malwa. Before that, summer was over, the rainy season was going to start, and nothing was happening. So he left an army of about 15 to 20,000 people with Scindias and Holkars, and that was the first time, 1735, when the Marathas did not go back to their homeland at the end of the summer. They stayed in camp, and that's how Scindias and Holkars began their base in Malwa region for the first time. When he went back to Pune, by October the reply came from the emperor. He just gave him some kind of a title that you got 7,000 Swar and 7,000 Jat, and these are ranks actually like we have in the army these days. And his younger brother also was given some ranks, but there was no mention of Malwa. So Bajirao said, this is the time when I have to show him what I can do. And in the beginning of end of 1736, it was usually after Dashera when they did the Simo Langan, or crossed the borders of the land. And it was also a good time because the monsoons were over, the cavalry could go, because it was not a lot of slush would prevent the horses from going from place to place. And he began from here collecting his dues all the way from the Nawab of Bhopal and so on, right up to the town of Bhadawar. Bhadawar is a place just between the Chambal and the Yamuna. There's a place called Ater over there where there's a king. This king was actually protected by the Nawab of Awadh at that time, was Sadat Khan. So he refused to allow Bajirao's soldiers to pass and refused to give any kind of help to Bajirao. So there he had to fight with this Nawab and he had to defeat him, and he took 20 lakh of rupees as his tribute for defeating him. He took defeated his entire army, and he made sure that Sadat Khan does not cross over by capturing all the boats, so that the crossing over of the river to come this side of the Jamuna was not possible. After this, the Mughal court woke up when they found that he is going to cross the Jamuna now and his next stop is going to be Agra. That is when they started sending out armies under Khan Dauran, under Kamruddin Khan, who was the Wazir at that time. They started coming down. Sadat Khan was told that you must start from Awadh and stop this. And 3 Mughal armies started converging on Agra at that time. At that time, Mallar Rao Holkar, who was with Bajirao, he made a small incursion across the Jamuna and began looting that place in the Doab between the Ganga and the Jamuna. And that is when Sadat Khan came from Awadh and defeated Mallar Rao Holkar, surprised him and chased him back. When about 1,500 Marathas were killed in that raid also by Sadat Khan, immediately informed the emperor that I have defeated the Maratha army of Bajirao and pushed them back south of the Chambal. The emperor promptly sent him a lot of gifts and khillat, robes of honor and so on. And the 3 Mughal armies, when they came near Agra, they all celebrated that we have managed to push Bajirao south. At this stage, is a very nice letter, a 4-page letter in Marathi, which Bajirao has written on the 8th of April to his brother after he finished his entire attack. He says that at that time I had 2 options. Either I defeat Sadat Khan and bury him, or I go to Delhi and show the Marathas, show the emperor that the Maratha armies are still at the gates of Delhi. So he had 3 options. Either he goes back to Pune because there were 3 big armies of 50,000-60,000 people barring his path to Delhi, or he could have fought them face to face, or he was saying I'll go and attack Delhi. Now what he did is that between the 2 armies there was a narrow path of a few miles, between which he found, clinging to the hills in that region away from Agra and Mathura to the west of it, that in a matter of 3 days he made that with all his army of 30,000 men, he managed to reach, bypassing these Mughal armies, he reached on the outskirts of Delhi. And the Kalka Mandir which you have over here, in Marathi he uses a word called Zhomba Zhombi. Means he did some kind of disturbance over there. All the pilgrims who had come out of Delhi to go to Kalka, because it was a Ram Navami day, a lot of people were coming out to pray and so on. There was a Mela also there for that day. So he came and sent some soldiers there. He just broke some shops, looted some people, got some horses and camels. So somebody realized the Marathas are in Delhi. The one man went into Delhi was a walled city those days, went into the city and told the Mughal court that the Marathas are here. He said, you are being silly. There are 3 large Maratha armies, Mughal armies south of Delhi. How can Bajirao come here? And besides, Sadat Khan has told us he's already been sent back to the south. So what they did is they sent a beggar, a man disguised as a beggar. You go and have a look, see who has actually reached here. And the whole court was waiting with bated breath, what news comes back. At around midnight, that beggar came back and he showed what he got from the Maratha camp when he begged from them. He got dry gram, chana, and dry bread, which is bhakri, which they call it. It's a kind of a dry paratha which they make. So he said, this is what I got with alms. So when they saw this, because this was the staple diet of a Maratha trooper, he carried dry gram with him, chana, and he had this dry baked jawar or bajra ka roti, which is all he had on his way when he was marching. So when they saw this, they knew the Marathas are here. And most of the armies being in the south, they had nobody much to really oppose them. Some raw levies led by some guys went and tried to oppose him. And about 5,000-6,000 people tried to oppose, out of which they lost about 1,000 people in that battle. And At that time, you can see that Bajirao was not just a warrior, but he was also a statesman of kinds, because he writes to his brother that I was thinking initially of burning down a few suburbs of Delhi to show I am here. But then I considered that Delhi is a Mahasthal. It has the respect because it's been the capital from the time of the Pandavas. So burning a city down or burning its suburbs breaks the cord of diplomacy, because his purpose was served. He had shown the emperor that the Marathas are here, and he could come back here a second time and a third time if it comes to, if his demands were not met. But diplomacy was still going on. After all, it said that war is just a diplomacy by other means. So he knew where to stop, he knew how much to go, and he decided, I'm not going to burn down anything, but I just wanted to show I am here and they know I am there. And from there, he says in his letter that he was staying in a place called Kushbandi. If anybody in Delhi can enlighten me where is Kushbandi, I'll be happy. But the nearest point I have found which resembles Kushbandi is Kushak Mahal, which is in the Teen Murti Bhavan. And that was a hunting lodge of Firoz Shah Tughlaq from the 13th century onwards. So it is said that he stayed in Kushbandi. Presumably he stayed in that hunting lodge, which was in the middle of the forest in those days. And then from there he went towards Palam. And by that time Kamaruddin Khan had heard that Bajirao had attacked Delhi and started coming north. And they had a small skirmish before he retired to Kotputli and towards Rajasthan, Jaipur state, and went back to Malwa. So this was his famous raid of 1737, and this raid was heard all over. I mean, even Nadir Shah in Persia came to know that the bare-backed Marathas came from the Deccan and they attacked Delhi. So he wrote a famous letter to Muhammad Shah. He said, what are you doing? How can you allow these guys to come and attack you? You are not doing your administration properly. I am coming there to teach you with my Qizilbash how you are supposed to administer your kingdom. Before that happened in 1739, but before that, the Mughal emperor tried one more last gambit, and he called Nizam-ul-Mulk from the south, and he said, now you must go and teach Bajirao a lesson. So the Nizam-ul-Mulk, Bajirao was going south and Nizam-ul-Mulk was coming north. They passed within a few miles of each other. They sent courteous messages to each other. And when the Nizam went to Delhi, he was feted like a great warrior has come, the only savior of the Mughal empire. And he was told, now you must go south and fight with Bajirao. So Nizam-ul-Mulk, with a big army at the end of monsoons, by the time in Delhi he had been given a lot of titles also. Asaf Jah and all these titles were all bestowed on him. He was made the biggest superior to the Wazir also. And with a big army at the end of monsoons, he began to go south. And he told his son, Nasir Jang, who was in Hyderabad, that you come up and we'll catch Bajirao in between our two armies. Bajirao had already started going north at the end of Dashera. And he knew that Nizam-ul-Mulk was coming down to fight with him. And he also knew that Nasir Jang is leaving from Hyderabad, because he was getting letters from there that today so many people have been called, so much army has been collected and so on. So he posted his brother somewhere on the river Tapi and said, don't let Nasir Jang cross this river. And he crossed the Tapi, he crossed the Narmada. And when the Nizam found that he is marching towards Malwa, what he did is, last time in Palkhed he had been caught because he didn't get provisions. He had no water, he had no food, his army was thirsty. They had to kill the bullocks and eat them and so on. So this time he thought, I will take shelter in the fort of Bhopal, where there's a big lake at the back of the fort. So he entered Bhopal, and Bajirao writes to his letter, I don't know, I thought that Nizam is a great soldier, but he has committed a blunder by going to the fort of Bhopal. The next thing he knew is that there was another siege around the fort of Bhopal, and they started starving. There was some Rajput troops from Kota, the Durjan Sal of Kota was also with him. Now the Rajputs, being predominantly vegetarians, would not eat the bullocks when they were starving. So they became very unhappy with the situation they were in. And soon negotiations began between the two sides, and Bajirao said, okay, I'll let you go, but you have to concede all my demands and you have to get this sanction done from Delhi. So when the treaty was signed at Doraha near Bhopal, Bajirao writes that Nizam was so unhappy that under his hand he had to write that with his own mouth he had to utter the words that I'm giving you the 6 subas of Deccan, I'll make sure you get the Chauthai of these places, I will make sure you get the Sanad of Malwa, and so on. This happened in 1738. In 1739, Nadir Shah attacked Delhi. And that time the Marathas were extremely busy on the western coast, because from 1737 onwards, there was a battle to evict the Portuguese from the western coast. The Portuguese was the most well entrenched power with very strong forts all along the western border from Dahanu or Daman right up to Goa, leaving except the island of Bombay, which was originally Portuguese but given to the English. The entire Konkan belt belonged to the Portuguese. And the complaints the Peshwa used to keep getting about the people living there was because of the Inquisition, and which you must have all read, what kind of operation was going on the local populace. So this was a very strong complaint which was coming to the Peshwa and the Chhatrapati repeatedly. But all these years they didn't have the opportunity to really go and sort out the Portuguese. And 1737, Chimaji Appa, who was Bajirao's brother, first took it upon himself and he liberated the island of Sashti, which is where today Thane stands, and Bandra. From Bandra to Thane in the suburbs of Bombay is the island of Sashti. Sashti stands for 66. In Marathi it's called Sahasasht. So that's why the island is called Sashti, or Salsette as they call it in English. So that island was liberated in 1737. Then because Nadir Shah came, Chimaji Appa had to leave that campaign halfway and go. And 1739 he said, I'm going to finish this Vasai problem, because the fort of Vasai was one of the strongest forts of the Portuguese that time. Vasai was those days called as Basin. And that battle took place just at the time when Nadir Shah was here. In fact, it's a coincidence that Shahu had told Bajirao that you must go and help Muhammad Shah, because I have promised Aurangzeb on his deathbed that I will make sure that Mughal dynasty is not extinguished. This is a very strange thing which I am trying to tell you. That Shahu's father was killed by Aurangzeb. Shahu was a captive in Aurangzeb's camp from 1689 to 1707 for a good amount of 18 years. He grew up there. But when Aurangzeb died, he promised the emperor that I will make sure that your dynasty is not extinguished. Probably Aurangzeb had a foreboding that the kind of problem he has landed up with in the Marathas, like they say the Spanish ulcer in relation to Napoleon, it was the Deccan ulcer which ruined Aurangzeb. So he had a foreboding that after my death, something is going to happen here which is not going to be good for the empire. So he said, he got this promise from Shahu, and Shahu told Bajirao that you must make sure that Muhammad Shah is not disturbed and go and help him. So they were waiting for the Vasai battle to get over, and the Rajputs were writing to Bajirao that you are the only person they are waiting for, and if Muhammad Shah has been deposed and Nadir Shah goes back, then we will put the Rana of Udaipur as the king in Delhi. But it can only be done with your arms. And Bajirao was sitting in Burhanpur waiting for Chimaji to finish the Vasai campaign, because Holkar was also involved in that campaign, and all the army to join him at Burhanpur and then march north to confront Nadir Shah. And Nadir Shah was writing letters to Bajirao that you will make sure that you will obey the orders and you will not come north of the Narmada and so on and so forth. Otherwise, I will come down there and punish you. So while this was building up, 4th of May 1739 was the date when Vasai surrendered, the Portuguese surrendered to the Marathas. Vasai's fort was taken. And coincidentally, on the 5th of May, Nadir Shah left Delhi and went back to Iran. And he restored Muhammad Shah back to the throne of Delhi. But it was a completely denuded city. There was nothing left. Everything had been looted. There was a big massacre which took place at that time here. And unfortunately, at that time, the Marathas could not come to help against the invader, because they were involved in a very big battle. 12,000 Maratha soldiers were killed in just liberating the fort of Vasai and the island of Thana. And today, we liberated Goa in 1961. But had the Portuguese not been removed from the entire western coast at that time, they would have remained there till 1961, because the English were not going to fight with them and remove them from there. So that liberation of that entire coastal area was due to this 1739 battle which was carried out by Chimaji Appa. In 1740, Bajirao died. He did not commit suicide. He died because of a heat stroke. For 1 week he had high fever in the month of April by the banks of the Narmada, and he died. His sudden death suddenly left a vacuum. His son was just 19 years of age, but Shahu had so much respect for this house of the Peshwa's family that immediately he made the 19-year-old boy his next Peshwa. The month that Bajirao died, Raghuji Bhosle of Nagpur went on a raid to Trichinopalli, and that is the famous, from Trichinopalli came north, he went to Orissa and Bengal. So that was all one continuum from 1740 to 1742, when Orissa and Bengal were also brought under the Maratha ambit. At the same time, you find Muhammad Shah helplessly watching that Bengal was being raided by one of the Maratha Sardars of Nagpur, and he asked Shahu that please help me to get rid of Raghuji Bhosle. Shahu told Nanasaheb Peshwa that please do something about this. Raghuji is not listening to me, he has gone and attacked Bengal. And you find Nanasaheb taking another army, going north, passing through Gaya, and fighting with Raghuji Bhosle to evict him from Bengal. And reports of that were coming to the Mughal Empire every day. Today Raghuji has reached here, today Nanasaheb has reached there, and so on and so forth. Alivardi Khan gave Nanasaheb 20 lakh rupees to evict Raghuji Bhosle from Bengal. And Nanasaheb always knew that Bengal is the richest province of the Mughal Empire. He always was interested in capturing Bengal. And right up his entire 21 years of his career, you find all his letters saying that please go to Bengal and get the revenue from there. So when this happened, Shahu was very disturbed that two of his own officers are fighting with each other. And when they came back in 1743, he divided the two areas of operation. And he said, Bihar, Bengal, Orissa is the Nagpur Bhosle's territory. The Peshwa is not supposed to go there. And this situation remained for the next 13 years as long as Raghuji Bhosle was alive. Raghuji Bhosle finally died in 1756. Now let's go into the politics of Delhi at that time. Ahmad Shah Abdali became the king of Afghanistan in 1747 after Nadir Shah was assassinated over there. Immediately he was short of funds and he decided he will attack Delhi. He had already come to Delhi once with Nadir Shah in 1739. So 1748 was the first invasion where he attacked Delhi, and at that time Muhammad Shah sent an appeal to Nanasaheb, please come to Delhi and help me, and Nanasaheb went. There's a letter saying that Nanasaheb met Muhammad Shah, but by the time the battle was already over, Abdali was defeated in that first battle and he was sent back, and the prince Ahmad Shah was son of Muhammad Shah at that time. He led the battle. Safdar Jung, who was the Nawab of Awadh, he fought at that time. So they actually managed to push Abdali back. But by the time they came back, Muhammad Shah was dead and Ahmad Shah became the next emperor. The very next year, Abdali came back, 1749. But in 1749, Chhatrapati Shahu passed away, and the next 2 years there was a civil war in Maharashtra for the succession, the Maratha succession, who will be the next king, because Shahu had no sons. So that occupied the Peshwa till 1752. If you find these two vital years of Indian history, when the Peshwa was stuck in this succession battle in around Satara, that was a time where the English and the French managed to make their mark in the Karnataka. 1751, 1752, these are the times when they, and you'll be surprised when Clive won at Arcot, there were 2,000 Maratha soldiers with him. So the Marathas and English were cooperating with each other at that time, because the French, who were the rivals to the English, were helping the Nizam, who was an enemy of the Marathas. So you find on one hand the Maratha-English collaboration at one side and the French-Nizam collaboration on the other side. That was the situation developing in the Deccan at that stage. In 1756, you find Watson, Admiral Watson and Colonel Clive coming with the King's Navy to India because they wanted to defeat the French. But a secret proposal was put to them because the Angre, who was the head of the Navy in Vijayadurg in the South Maharashtra, was not listening to the Peshwa. So the Peshwa sent his army, the English sent their navy, and that fort of Vijayadurg was captured, and the Angre who was there, Tulaji Angre, was imprisoned and handed over to the Peshwa. So that is where the English-Maratha collaboration was going on. This was in 1755-56. 1756, within a few months after that, Siraj-ud-Dawla, who was in Bengal, he removed the English from Calcutta and Calcutta was taken by him. They came, Drake, who was the ruler, who was the agent in Calcutta, he came back to Madras. And at that very time in 1757, Ahmad Shah Abdali made his fourth invasion of India. Before that, in 1752, the Emperor of Delhi had signed an agreement, it's called the Ahadnama, with the Marathas, that they will protect him against all the internal and external enemies of the emperor. Internal because in his own darbar, there were plenty of conspiracies and he was not safe from his own courtiers. So he needed protection from them as well as from invaders. So in 1757, when Abdali attacked, it was necessary to do something to protect Delhi. But that time there were only 5,000 men, 5,000 Maratha soldiers in Delhi, and it was a small Jat ruler called Surajmal Jat in Ballabgarh. So these were the only two people who opposed Abdali at that time. Delhi was for the first time occupied by Abdali, and the loot in Delhi at that time has been described in several authors, even in one of my books is described that finally when Abdali took all the treasure back to Afghanistan, besides all the massacres and so on which he did, there was not even a washerman's donkey left in Delhi. He took whatever available animals were to carry all his treasure back. That was the amount of loot that Delhi was subjected to. At that time, Najib Khan Rohila, who had actually was an immigrant, first generation immigrant from Afghanistan, he told him that the Marathas are getting too strong and all the powerful offices of the empire are going in the hands of the Hindus. The Muslims have become second-rate citizens in this empire. Shah Waliullah was an ideologue at that time of the empire. Even he wrote to Abdali that you must come here and rescue us. So against all that background, Abdali marched down to Mathura. It was a big slaughter in Mathura. Another big slaughter took place in Vrindavan. People were given money according to the number of heads that were cut and brought there. The only people who opposed him in Vrindavan were the sannyasis and sadhus over there at Vrindavan. They tried to oppose the Afghan invasion at that stage. At this time, the Marathas were partly in Rajputana. Holkar was there. Raghunath Rao was the younger brother of Nana Sahib. He was somewhere in Indore. And they just had collected about 10,000 soldiers by that time. They had still took time to collect an army to go and confront it was a major undertaking to confront Abdali at that stage. When the onset of monsoon took place in 1757, Abdali began his way back because he never stayed here during the monsoons or during the summers of Delhi. That is the stage when the Marathas moved north. Najib Khan was put in charge of Delhi. They attacked Delhi, defeated Najib Khan, and at that stage, in fact, Raghunath Rao, who was just a 20-year-old boy, son of Baji Rao, he wanted to imprison Najib Khan. But it is said that he gave a bribe to Holkar and escaped from there and went back to his own territories. So from these tragedies, future tragedies come up from such small mistakes. From there, after capturing Delhi, they moved further north. They took the city of Sarhind, which was little north of Delhi, somewhere near Chandigarh today. And at that point in time, they were invited by the governor of Punjab that why don't you come and liberate us from Abdali, who was ruling over Punjab by that time. Taimur Shah Abdali, who was son of Ahmad Shah, along with one of his big generals called Jahan Khan, were both sitting at Lahore. So next thing they knew, they took an undertaking to enter Punjab, and that is when they stepped on Abdali's toes. Abdali was not interested in Delhi, he was not interested in coming any further. He just wanted Punjab because that was a rich province from where he could get his supplies. Afghanistan, after all, was a desert. But when they entered Punjab, that is when they stepped on Abdali's toes. But the Mughals wanted Punjab back because from old days, Lahore and all these parts of the Mughal Empire. In fact, Emperor Jahangir died at Lahore. Bahadur Shah died in Lahore. The Muslims are there. So they wanted this Punjab to come back here. And they recruited the Marathas and said that you must take the Maratha armies and enter Punjab. So the Marathas, along with the Sikhs and a small Mughal contingent, they entered Punjab. They attacked Lahore. Jahan Khan and Taimur Shah had to run away from there. And Lahore, Multan, Attock and Peshawar, all these 4 cities were captured by the Marathas. They stayed there for about good part of an year, occupying these territories. That time Ahmad Shah Abdali was in a very bad state in his own country of Afghanistan. He was under rebellions on all sides. And there's a famous letter which the Shah of Iran sent to Raghunath Rao Peshwa. Raghunath Rao was that time in Lahore. And in fact, he was feted with rose water in the Shalimar gardens of Lahore at that time. And a letter came from the Shah of Iran that between you and me, we will squash this Afghan ruler and we will divide the country amongst ourselves. You take whatever is on the other side of the Khyber Pass, I will take Kabul and Kandahar on my side. So Raghunath Rao from Lahore, writes a letter to his brother who was the Peshwa. There's a proposal which has come to me from the Shah of Iran that we should divide up Afghanistan between us and you stay that side of Indus and we will take the part this side. But I said, why should I agree to this proposal? After all, till the time of Alamgir, that's Aurangzeb, till the time of Aurangzeb, Kabul was part of India and Kandahar was also a part of India. So why should I concede Kabul and Kandahar to the Shah of Iran? We must go and capture those parts also. So this was I mean, you are already 1,500 kilometers from your power base, which is Pune. But over there, they are still thinking that these are the parts of India. I mean, this concept of India again comes into this letter. The letter is of 1750s, 1758, that he still wants to go and get Kabul and Kandahar back into the Indian territory because it was once upon a time a part of, in fact, it was lost by Shah Jahan. Kandahar was lost by Shah Jahan 100 years earlier because he wanted to go and get them back. From there, Raghunath Rao came back and Dattaji Shinde took his place, and Abdali came back in 1759. Within 2 years after that was the famous Battle of Panipat, which I will not go into the details of that because that will take another hour to discuss. And the big debacle in Panipat, for reasons I will not right now go into. And over there, 100,000 Marathas laid down their lives. But on his way to Panipat, Sadashivrao Bhau was the Maratha leader, the Maratha general who was taking the army north, wrote some letters to the northern rulers and told them that there are two objectives before me. One objective is that the Chughtai dynasty must remain, and I am fighting for the Chughtai dynasty, that is, he is fighting for the Mughals. And Abdali's roots must not grow in this, must not be allowed to take root here. They must be uprooted from here. So again the concept that Mughals are belonging to India, but the invader must be evicted. That kind of feeling you always get in these letters which they. So Marathas at all the time were trying to protect the Mughals. They were allowing the Mughals to rule because they had become very weak by that time. It was a phantom actually. The Mughal empire at that time had become a phantom. The ruler was a phantom. He had, like Shah Alam, the rule extended from Delhi to Palam. That's what is a famous saying even at that stage. And 1759 was when Shah Alam declared himself emperor, sitting in Allahabad. After Panipat, there was a debacle. There was an eclipse of Maratha power. The Peshwa died within 6 months of that. His son was just 17 years of age. His uncle Raghunath Rao ambitions were such that he wanted to become the Peshwa. Within the Peshwa family, a small civil war erupted, and the neighbors were quick to take advantage. The Nizam attacked. He attacked Pune. Hyder Ali, who was now on the south, was the new rising star. He began taking advantage because just before that he had been defeated by a Maratha army. And when the Maratha army heard that there is a debacle at Panipat, they quickly took 3 lakhs from Hyder Ali and went back to Pune. And Hyder Ali was surprised, why have they just settled for 3 lakhs? Because subsequently, whenever they attacked Hyder Ali, they took 30 lakhs tribute each time. But that time, because Panipat had happened and Hyder Ali had not heard about it, they satisfied themselves with 3 lakh rupees and rushed back to Pune. So all these people started taking advantage and taking away chunks of the kingdom. Mallarra Holkar was the only Subedar who was still surviving from the old days. He was 70 years of age by that time, and but he was the only person who retained some amount of Maratha prestige north of the Narmada. I remained in Malwa. Madho Singh of Jaipur, who actually the Marathas had put in his throne, attacked their territories, and there was a battle at Mangrol where Madho Singh was defeated by Holkar. So next 2 years were very difficult. There was a running battle with the Nizam for the next 2 years till he was defeated in 1763 at Rakshas Bhavan, and that is when Madhavrao Peshwa actually came into his own. The reason that Raghunath Rao kept on intriguing against his nephew, and his nephew would not take stern action against him, like just cut off his head. That did not happen in Maratha scheme of things, that you put somebody in prison and like here you find in Delhi is this emperor becomes the king, he knocks off all the other contestants, all the other brothers are knocked off before one guy becomes the emperor. That never happened there. So 4 years of Madhavrao's time were spent conciliating, controlling his uncle. Finally in 1768 he put him in prison, and by that time he had already 3 attacks on Hyder Ali right up to Srirangapatnam. 1769 finally he found a time to send a large army under 4 different chiefs. There was Ramchandra Ganesh Kanade, there was Visaji Krishna Biniwale, who were supposed to be the seniors, and they were supposed to be joined by Mahatji Shinde, then a very junior man in the hierarchy, but the chief of the Scindia house, and Tukoji Holkar, who had taken over from Mallarra at that stage. And these 4 people started moving north. They took tribute from the Rajputs, took tribute from the Jats. Najib Khan was an old man that time. He came forward and said, I'll have a treaty with you. Take care of my son. His son's name was Zabita Khan. They went into the Doab. They defeated the Bangash at Farrukhabad. And then the king, who was sitting in Allahabad, wanted to come back to Delhi. He was sitting in Allahabad protected by the English because he had lost a few battles with the English and he was sitting there ever since. So he was told by the Marathas, we'll put you back in your throne in Delhi. So from 1759 to 1772, there was no emperor in Delhi. It was being practically ruled by the Mir Bakshi, who was Najib-ud-Dawla. For 8 years, Najib-ud-Dawla was the dictator of Delhi at that time. 1769, the Marathas came. 1770, Najib-ud-Dawla died shortly after that. The Marathas attacked Delhi, took it from Zabita Khan. One more year it took for them to get the emperor from Allahabad. January 1772, Shah Alam was placed on the throne through the good offices of the Maratha chief, Mahatji Shinde actually. After he was placed on his throne, the Marathas along with the Mughal soldiers crossed the Ganga. First objective was to punish Najib-ud-Dawla for his role in Panipat. Because he was the man who invited Abdali and who was the man who kind of plotted the fall of the Marathas and the massacre which took place afterwards. So they crossed the Ganga, they went and raided Pathargarh, which is a big fort north, just south of Haridwar near Najibabad. And it is the loot from Najibabad, from Pathargarh, there's a big list of that. They got about 10 lakh rupees worth of gold, silver and jewelry. Many of the people inside the fort threw it in the moat outside. The moat was drained and got the jewelry was obtained. 2,000 fine horses. So all these things were taken by charge of the Marathas, and they felt now that we have kind of avenged the role that Najib Khan played at Panipat. They even went and defaced his grave at Najibabad. They did not dig it out, they just defaced it. So this kind of, then they said that we will now go towards Allahabad and take charge, because getting Kashi and Allahabad into their Kashi and Prayag as they called it, under their charge was a long time aim of the Marathas. Right from Bajirau's time, when he used to send his terms to the emperor, he used to say, give us Kashi and Allahabad. And for Shuja-ud-Dawla, who was the Nawab at that time, it was a matter of prestige that he would not concede these two places to a Hindu power. So this tussle was going on. After taking Pathargarh, Delhi, the next item on the agenda was to go to Allahabad. So he took Najaf Khan, who was here along with them, along with another Zabita Khan, and he started moving towards Allahabad. But in between, they started having differences among themselves, and that petered out. By the time the Allahabad was already under the English custody, so the battle never really took place at that stage. But Madhavrao Peshwa died in 1772, and his brother, who became the next Peshwa, was assassinated the following year. Assassinated, and the culprit for that was the same uncle who had bothered them all these years. So a second civil war began in the Maratha capital itself, and the English were quick to take advantage of it, and they grabbed the island of Salsette or Sashti, which was right next to Bombay, and that's how the first Anglo-Maratha war started in 1775 and went on till 1782, and it was an alliance of the Nizam, Hyder Ali and the Marathas against the English. Till finally in 1782, Mahatji Shinde, he lost Gwalior and he found that he could not face the English who were coming on. He signed a treaty on behalf of the Peshwa at Salbi, and that peace was, since from then there was peace between the English and the Marathas, and that gave Mahatji Shinde the chance to go to Delhi and take charge of the capital. 1784-85, one finds Mahatji is in Delhi. The emperor makes him the Wakil-e-Mutalak. Wakil-e-Mutalak is one of the highest, the regent plenipotentiary who looks after all the affairs of the empire. The emperor doesn't have to do anything. So, and in the history of the Mughal Empire, there have been only 3 Wakil-e-Mutalaks, of which Mahatji was the third. I think Farrukh Siyar made somebody before that, and I forget one more Wakil-e-Mutlaq before that. So this kind of situation was in 1785, things were looking very rosy. One of his chiefs, Ambaji Ingle, was sent north of Delhi to stop the Gujars from attacking Delhi. And they had a treaty with the Sikhs. Like the Marathas took Chauthai, the Sikhs at that time took what is called Rakhi. For protecting you, they used to take a Rakhi from you, which is 8% of your total revenue. So this agreement was made with the Sikhs that you will not come to Delhi again, and they posted a force north of Delhi. So things seemed to be going all right, but there was no money. The emperor had no money. The emperor's family required 1.5 lakh rupees a month to look after them. And Mahatji Shinde, for all his efforts and his large army, he had got nothing in return. Now the dues from Jaipur from 1748 were still unpaid, which were running into crores of rupees. The dues to the Mughal emperor and the dues to the Marathas. So the next item on the agenda was to extract these dues from the king of Jaipur. So an expedition was planned against Jaipur. Now Jaipur and Jodhpur got together. In addition, they got the help of some other Mughal adventurers called Hamadani. And between the three of them, Mahatji Shinde that time was a little wrong in his calculations. And in 1787, he was defeated in the battle at Lalsot. And from there he had to retreat to Deeg. And when then he lost Agra city. He did not lose Agra fort, which was in his custody. His flag was still flying there. But Agra city he lost, and the Doab he lost, and he was forced to retreat south of the Chambal. And without money and without a sufficient power, he could not come back north. When Lalsot happened, the grandson of Najib Khan was Ghulam Qadir. He got his opportunity to come and strike at Delhi. And he came from the north. The force which had been kept north of Delhi had been called to help him at Lalsot. He was south of Chambal, sitting in Gwalior at that stage. And that is when Ghulam Qadir came and took over Delhi and declared himself the Mir Bakshi here. Mir Bakshi is the commander of the armies actually. And Ghulam Qadir, in the next 1.5 years, the atrocities he committed on the emperor here, like starting from blinding him, from trying to extract whatever, he dug up the entire Red Fort. Nothing was left. He stripped all the ladies, the princesses, he exposed them on the towers of the fort and for hours together without their burqas. And this kind of ignominy which he did was probably worse than the Mughal family had ever been subjected to. And the respect the Mughal family even at that stage had in society, one English author has written that he was going with a very thin guard from one place to another in the palki. When some people started attacking him, some Gujars began to attack him. So he told his palki bearer that tell the Gujars that idhar Badshah ki Bibi Sahab ja rahi hain palki mein, though it was this guy sitting inside. And when he said that Badshah ki Bibi Sahab ja rahi, those Gujars moved back because they would not touch a lady from the royal Zanana. That was a respect even common people and robbers and thieves were giving the Mughal family. But here was Ghulam Qadir, who was stripping them for searching them for hidden jewels and valuables. And that was when the lowest point of the Chugtai dynasty was left. From there, once Mahatji recovered, he came north of the Chambal. He again captured Agra city. That time one of his chief officers was a man called Rana Khan Bhai. Now, Rana Khan Bhai was a Muslim, but he was the most trusted man of Mahatji Shinde, because when Mahatji Shinde was running away from Panipat and he was injured by an Afghan chasing him, Rana Khan Bhai is the man who carried him on his shoulders and brought him back to safety. From then Rana Khan Bhai remained with Mahatji and he became one of his foremost generals. So he was the man who took back Agra. He went and took back Aligarh and Mathura, and before you knew it, he was at the gates of Delhi. And then the chase began to catch Ghulam Qadir. He went back to Ghausgarh and Shamli and all these places. Ali Bahadur was the grandson of Bajirao and Mastani. He came with a large army from the Deccan and they chased Ghulam Qadir, caught him 1788, and he was brought to Mahatji's camp near Mathura. And there Shah Alam demanded of Mahatji that this man has blinded me. He sat on his chest and with a knife he removed his eyes of the emperor. So he said that I want to feel his eyeballs, so send them to me. That was a kind of vehemence the emperor felt for him. So Mahatji called 2 doctors from his army and got his eyes removed and sent the eyes to the emperor. And there's a description of when the box was present to the emperor, with what glee and happiness the emperor touched those eyes and felt that the person who had done this to him has been punished. So all these gory details, I mean, this is the blackest period you can have any people living in Delhi could have experienced at that stage. And in 1788, finally, when the Ghulam Qadir episode was over, Mahatji's flag fluttered on the Red Fort along with the Badshah's flag, and for an uninterrupted period for the next 15 years till 1803, when Mahatji was already dead, but the British captured Delhi in 1803 in the battle of fought near the Purana Killa, and then of course the British rule began in Delhi. Lord Lake captured the city at that stage. So this is a very dramatic period in the history of Delhi in the 18th century. And the reason I'm bringing it out today is to show 2 things. One is that for most of the 18th century, the Marathas were the predominant and the paramount power in the 18th century in most parts of India. I have only restricted my talk to what happened in the north, but at the same time things were going on down below. At Srirangapatnam in 1771 they were firing on the fort when one of the cannonballs hit the temple there. We were considered a bad omen and they decided, okay, let's not go any further. The temple has been hurt by a cannonball, and so Hyder Ali was spared. So these kind of was going on all over the place, and to call the Battle of Plassey the beginning of the British Empire will be an aberration and a misrepresentation of history. At the same time, the Marathas, whenever they came here, they fought for the empire. They fought to defend the Chughtai dynasty, to reinstate the emperor back in his throne. They had their own interests. Nobody will fight for somebody else without having his own interests in mind. But they shed their blood. Thousands of them gave their lives for this thing. But for the last 2 days when I walk around in Delhi, except for one Peshwa Marg and one Rani of Jhansi Marg, I don't see any representation of Peshwa in the city. And Delhi has forgotten the Marathas, and I hope that to the limited number of people who I have here, I have in some way managed to convey what a role they played in that very eventful 18th century in the history of India. Thank you very much.